Hey everybody, today I want to talk about a topic that I believe is going to become increasingly important over the next few years. And that's really the future of campaign operations and marketing operations, how those are going to be rebuilt in this new era of AI. And this is a topic that's come up again and again in conversations I've been having lately with CEOs and CMOs and CTOs. A lot of questions about how should we think about applied AI in marketing? How should we think about what we should build ourselves versus buy from vendors? How should we think about all the myriad of marketing tools and platforms that our teams are using today? Um, it's really the case that um, we're moving from a situation where we have so many fragmented workflow tools and disconnected systems. Most teams, the opportunity here is to move towards a more intelligent campaign operating system that's custom built for the AI era. And it's an area where I've spent a lot of my time throughout my career. And I really think we're entering a major transition point for this space. I also wanted to go a little bit deeper and be more concrete and specific about the examples because I hear so many people talk about the opportunities to apply AI in marketing, and obviously, when we talk about AI, there's a tremendous amount of hype and discussion. But I think what's been lacking is just getting really concrete and specific about, okay, well, where do we see examples and opportunities of where we can apply AI in marketing, and specifically in this case, in our campaign operations to make things better? And then again, I'll get into a little bit of um, some thoughts about the buy versus build discussion and decision that a lot of teams are going through today. And then finally, I'm going to show a prototype demo of a system that I built that really demonstrates these capabilities and shows just how quickly and easily you can create a prototype, at least, of a system to do all the things that I'm describing in this talk. So let's jump in. It's true that, I think almost every marketing team I talk with today, they talk about how many tools they have. When we talk about marketing technology, there's tech stack. Most CMOs and marketing teams describe a myriad of tools that they use. And no one's particularly happy about having so many different tools because it really feels like a patchwork. It's really common to see teams across the board using tools like Airtable, Asana, Monday. Teams are using spreadsheets. They're using for communication, Slack and email, of course, email threads. The different creative tools that they're using. There are the app platforms themselves and the interfaces into those platforms. The tools really help us with different aspects of marketing work that we're doing. In some cases, they really help us coordinate the work across individuals and teams, but they generally don't improve the quality of the decisions. They really don't help us with execution speed. They really don't help us improve our data integrity in any meaningful way. Um, and so AI creates a new opportunity here to redesign really all of this in a way that really focuses on automation, on governance, on supporting decisions and good judgment, and supporting continuous learning. So the typical, marketing stack today, I think if you're lucky, you only have 15 to 20 distinct platforms and tools. A lot of teams have way more than that. Um, it's really broad by necessity. Each of these tools play a role, an important role. However, the wide breadth of tools that we have here without integration really creates a situation where we have compounding friction. We have different tools for workflow and intake, for communication, for media activation, for CRM, messaging, lifecycle, creative collaboration, you name it. And the hidden problem with all this is that it really results in talented people on our teams spending more and more time on low leverage work. They're doing things like copying information between tools. They're following up on approvals, uh, we needed that approval on Monday. We still don't have it. Let's kind of continue to follow up. It's Wednesday. Is that going to impact our campaign launch date? They're doing things like making corrections to campaign names. They're fixing broken UTMs. They're reconciling reports. They're chasing status updates. Um, all the work today that they're doing, it's necessary because of the tools and the process that we have, but it really doesn't create competitive advantage, and it can be so much better. So I think it's important to just kind of look back and say, over the past 5 years or 10 years, as we put these types of tools in place in most of our marketing teams, we did that for a reason. We had a good reason why we did it. So these tools they won out for a few different reasons. Marketing teams needed tooling that was really fast, that was very flexible, could be easily changed, and they needed something they could use without having a lot of dependency on engineering or IT. So all these tools, they're faster than spreadsheets, easier to build and use and change than custom software. They support collaboration in a very flexible and scalable way. And again, they have very low dependencies on IT or engineering. So they were definitely the right right answer for that era. However, the model's starting to break. I think as organizations scale, um, some of the flexibility that made these tools really attractive starts to become a liability. So we talked about, too many systems. Almost everyone believes, do we really need this many tools and platforms and systems? Why do we have to duplicate data entry across multiple tools? Why do we have inconsistent taxonomy and naming conventions, data quality issues? Why do we have manual approvals that are happening outside the tools where we have to jump into Slack or email, where it's difficult to track those approvals or have any type of audit trail? Um, why don't we have any type of cross-platform orchestration or shared memory of what's happened in the past? Dashboards that aren't accurate or actionable. And then one of the biggest challenges here that teams see and a lot of CMOs and heads of marketing operations will talk about is the complexity that all this creates drives the need for increasing operator headcount. And that's not a great thing. We're adding operators just to manage this complex process and all the different tools that we have in place, rather than being able to automate this and make it simpler and easier. So the real question that I think we need to ask for most marketing teams is not, what tool is going to replace Airtable or going to replace Monday or going to replace Asana. It's really, how do we redesign campaign operations for this new era of AI? How do we take a step back and really look at end to end across our marketing and campaign operations workflows to see how this could be redesigned, reimagined, and made so much better? So the opportunity here isn't really just an incremental opportunity or bolting on tools, but understanding that this is a fundamental shift that we're going to be going through from systems that track work and help us coordinate work to systems that actually help us improve that work and improve the outcomes, do that more efficiently, and do that a lot faster. So when we think about AI native campaign operations, and this is where I'm really excited to jump in and try to get more concrete and more specific about some examples here. When we're shifting from what we have today to something that's more like active intelligence, we're moving towards having an AI system that doesn't just record what's happened, but supports better decisions each and every time we create a new asset or launch a new campaign. So it's going to do things like help us answer questions that are really important, like what should we launch? How should we prioritize? Um, Even before a brief is written, it's going to help us identify what may underperform. It's going to help us identify what may violate our standards, whether those are brand standards or legal compliance rules? How can we understand what might violate those rules even at the point of creation early in our process? It's going to help us understand what data is incomplete, what's missing, help us improve our data quality. It can answer questions and help us answer questions like how should our budget mix change? How should we reallocate um, based on what's performing well and what's worked in the past? And one of the things I'm most excited about that I've mentioned earlier is that it's going to help us keep track of what we learned last time. In a lot of teams, it's difficult to go back and look through what experiments, what campaigns, what did we launch in the last 2 years, what did we learn from those, what succeeded, what failed. Oftentimes, it's so difficult to go back and find all that information that teams just skip that step, or they're highly dependent on um, a leader who maybe is like been leading growth marketing for a while or growth in product, and they have this just kind of personal history and memory of what's worked and what hasn't. So we're dependent on that individual. This is an opportunity to have AI keep track of past performance and make sure that that's always incorporated as we're planning our next campaign. So in short, we've got a number of different workflow stages that are just ripe for reinvention here. And that flows from our intake to our planning, our creative review, our brand approval, our legal review, trafficking, the QA steps that we do before launch, how we optimize performance, and then our post-campaign learnings. So each of these is very manual today. There's typically a lot of friction. Each of these could be so much better, and we'll talk about examples of how AI can be applied. So again, like getting much more concrete in terms of the examples here, when we think about something like intake and planning as an example, someone may submit a somewhat vague request or an idea for marketing, like we need a summer campaign for lapsed customers. And an AI system can help us turn that into a structured brief that includes clear objectives, the target audience, the recommended channels, the budget logic, the KPIs, the required assets, the approval path, at least as a starting point, something that can be reviewed and approved by the campaign manager, but it really helps us just speed execution and reduce a lot of ambiguity from the very beginning. When we think about things like the creative development and review, it's another strong opportunity here. Before we have humans on the team spending cycles debating creative, AI can help us simulate reactions from synthetic customer panels. This is something that I prototyped during my earlier sabbatical work, and I have an example of that if you're interested. But AI can really help us build synthetic customer panels and get feedback from different types of personas, like a first-time customer or a skeptical buyer, a loyal user, the different personas that we've defined with our marketing. And that early feedback from AI can really help us understand the clarity, the trust, the strength of the CTA, give us some early feedback. Doesn't replace human creativity. It just gives us faster signal kind of earlier in the creative development process. We can automate a lot of the brand and legal checks that we need to do. So AI can help us look at our brand guidelines, our brand standards, and just pre-screen every asset in the campaigns for things like tone of voice and style consistency. On the legal side, it can look for banned claims or unsupported statements, disclosures that we need to have, and really do a pre-check. So it can make sure that all that information is being provided earlier in the process, all that checking. And so when it goes to the brand team or the legal team, there's already a summary of what's been checked and what's maybe still needs to be reviewed or is that highlighted in terms of additional scrutiny or discussion. But a lot of the back and forth between the brand approval team or the legal team and the campaign team just gets reduced significantly because a lot of that feedback is just provided earlier in the process through the AI pre-check. I won't go through the others here. The one that I'm really excited about is just improving data quality. That's been a big focus area for me throughout a lot of my career. Definitely as the head of marketing technology, I care a lot about the quality of the data that we're capturing when we set up campaigns, and how that data quality needs to be checked and improved across the full data flow, even as we ingest that data into our data warehouse. All that's really important because if you think about the fact that this is the data that we're using to report on the performance of our campaign, to understand how we should be allocating our marketing investment, to flow into our MMM models, to everything that we're using to optimize our marketing investment. If that data input is bad or wrong or missing, it really degrades our ability to do all the good stuff that we're counting on the data for. And then finally, really want to talk a little bit about this idea of capturing learnings from each of these campaigns. So instead of learnings disappearing into Slack somewhere when they were first shared, or a deck somewhere that you have to go back and search for, an AI memory layer basically can help surface all the relevant insights when we're planning for future campaigns. So it can keep track of all this institutional knowledge that we've gained over time and help us act on that, make good decisions based on that. So this takes me to the vision for this prototype and demo that I've created. It's gonna show examples of how this might work in practice. So it's going to show examples of the AI brief generator, creative reviewer, help with trafficking, help with approvals, how it could orchestrate the workflow, the pre-screens for brand and legal, data quality checks, and then learning memory, how we keep this institutional knowledge persisted and available for improved decisions. So the goal of this really isn't full automation. It's really to pair, what AI is best at with what human beings are best at. And so we think about, an AI first pass. The great thing about AI is that it's very high volume, it's very scalable, it's consistent, it can be tireless across every asset, every campaign, all of our data. It can handle 90% of the known patterns that are out there. We still need the human judgment pass, though. So we need human focus on the 10% here that's flagged, that's ambiguous, that's somewhat novel, or that has major consequences, so that the time and attention of people on the team, the valuable time and attention of people on the team, goes where it's having the most value. So what this looks like in practice, AI could review 100 assets, maybe humans review all 100, but they pay more attention to the 10 that are flagged. AI could draft a campaign plan, but the manager is going to edit and approve that plan. AI is going to summarize the risks, but the member of the legal team is actually going to review those and make a final call. So the model here, it's not eliminating marketing operations. It's not going to eliminate the role of the brand team, the legal team, compliance, etc. It's just going to elevate the role that they play in this process from coordination and doing a lot of data cleanup to something that's much more strategic and much more systemic. And so the business outcomes, and then also the build versus buy framework. I want to close with just some discussion about these. If your marketing team is starting to scale up and you find that you're hiring more and more operators to manage those complex campaigns and make sure that they go out quickly, this is definitely something to start to consider. The potential business benefits here, obviously, we can move to faster campaign launches. We can really reduce a lot of the cycle time. A lot of times it's required for setup, for coordination, for approvals. We can have cleaner data. We can make sure that all of our reporting and dashboards and MMM and attribution, all that good stuff, we can trust because we've got good quality data that's flowing into that. We can lower the operations cost. We can have fewer, manual handoffs, and we can have the need for less headcount required for just coordination. We can improve compliance, so we can understand brand risk, legal risk. We can reduce that earlier in the process. One of the things that I think is exciting here is that uh, this type of system and this type of approach to campaign operations is something that really will help us scale personalization in the future. So when you think about a lot of marketing teams wanting to move to more and more personalization, especially in the age of AI, this needs to scale, and that tends to be something that's concerning for CMOs and marketing team members. Uh, but this type of process is something that can help marketing teams create more variants, more audiences, more types of campaigns, more personalization, and do that with the same team size they have today without hiring a lot of additional operators. And then finally, trust, making sure that the dashboards, the reports that our leaders and our teams are counting on can be trusted. And so a little bit of this discussion of build versus buy, because this is a hot topic in a lot of marketing teams with a lot of CMOs and CTOs today. I think that this is just a fairly high level, but uh, we should think about keeping our SaaS tools where they solve problems well, but building bespoke tools that help us kind of coordinate across and orchestrate across those tools and really help us gain competitive advantage because we have some things that are unique and different about our ways of working, our processes, our output that we built up over time that are working really well for us potentially, but a generic process or tool just wouldn't be appropriate. And that's we think about situations where we may have proprietary workflows and different types of approval models that are in place for our teams. We may be using a different set of tools where we need better cross-tool orchestration. We need some governance logic across all of that. We need to make sure that the LLMs that we're using in our process AI is trained on our internal standards, that they have access to our brand guidelines, our legal and compliance requirements, and we may have decisioning systems that are unique to our business. And so AI really helps dramatically lower the cost of building internal software. So we're already seeing a lot of examples of this in growth and marketing teams in obviously the AI native companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. We're seeing examples in startups and larger tech companies kind of leading the way and moving forward with this approach. But over the next couple of years, this is really going to expand across more and more types of companies, not just in the engineering team, but I think we're actually going to see marketing operations and marketing teams and definitely marketing engineering teams building these types of tools and tooling with the assistance of AI. It's becoming really easy to build a prototype within days and weeks and build a full production system that we can monitor, we can maintain, we can support um, with a very small team. And so that fundamentally changes the economics of build versus buy. But these are some of the reasons I think that it's worth considering this build approach when it comes to campaign operations. There are just so many benefits, and it really sets the stage for having a system, having workflows where now we can start to apply AI at different points where we've got increasing leverage with how that can be used and how it can be beneficial. We can incrementally improve that across our entire workflow. And that's going to lead to, again, faster campaigns, more efficient campaigns, but ultimately better decisions and better outcomes. Our campaigns are going to perform better. So hope all that's helpful. I know I've spent a lot more time kind of going deep with this presentation, but I wanted to try to get more concrete with the discussion and the examples, and hopefully this sparks a lot of ideas for you about where the opportunities are and how to think about the build versus buy decision, particularly as it applies to campaign operations. So next I'm going to jump into a demo of the prototype that I built that's going to just show an example of a system that I built very, very quickly just to demo how this might work in practice. All right, so now jumping into our demo, I really wanted to show you an example of what this type of AI native campaign operations system and workflow might look like in practice. This is just a quick mock-up, a quick prototype using an LLMs from OpenAI and just showing how, again, how this would work in reality. This is what I'm calling CampaignOS. It's a marketing command center. You can see that there are three different campaigns here that we have. They're at different life cycle stages. So one is in review, one is draft, one is live. Up at the top, we have a KPI strip that's keeping track of total committed budget, the average um, AI risk across the portfolio, how many campaigns are currently uh, launch blocked because of data quality. The whole point is that the CMO or the marketing leads, a marketing team can come in here and at a glance understand where we are, what's actually shippable, what campaigns are we able to launch this quarter. They don't have to read a single status update or doc or jump into a Slack thread to understand where we're at. Today I'm going to walk through one of these campaigns in particular. So I'm going to focus on this Q2 SMB trial push campaign. I'm going to take you through intake all the way through launch readiness so you can see how that would work in this type of system. If we jump into the campaign details, we can see that the header is going to show us the status, the owner, the launch date, budget, KPI, all that good stuff. It's going to show us two additional scores, a readiness score and an AI risk score. So both of those are going to be filled in by the AI workflow as we go through this campaign process. The AI brief here, if we look at this tab, if you think about a normal Airtable setup, the brief is a Google Doc that somebody wrote maybe late at night. It may be fairly incomplete, quickly kind of put together to kick off this process. Here, the brief is generated by AI. It's from the structured intake process, and the brief is structured itself. And so again, this is something that is generated by AI, but the campaign owner can go in and make edits here. But it gives us a really good starting point, and it helps to get everybody on the same page early about what the campaign is about and eliminate a lot of confusion that might exist as we move through the process. So it kind of starts us out on a very solid footing here. Behind the scenes, what happens is that this hits OpenAI LLM with a structured prompt, and it's going to validate the response against a schema before it saves. And it's going to give us, again, this kind of structured brief with a summary, hypothesis of the audience we should be targeting here, the creative direction, some of the key risks we should keep top of mind, the approvals that we'll need, and then the required assets and our measurement plan. So next we can look at creative, and here I just entered in some draft copy just as an example. But what this is going to do is once we have our creative entered, we can run a series of AI reviews. So we can run a brand review. I'll do that next. We can take a look at the output here. The brand review is really scoring the creative that we have against our brand standards, our brand guidelines. So it's looking at brand voice, the message clarity, the CTA, quality guidelines. It's giving us like an overall score, but the real interesting or useful part of this is it's highlighting the issues and the recommended edits. And so the nice thing about this is that the marketing team is getting feedback on the brand review really early in the process, long before we ever submit this to brand for final approval. Next, I want to show you the synthetic panel. Basically, what this is about is using AI to create a synthetic panel of users representing different personas. And here I just have some example personas. You probably have specific personas for your company, for your marketing that could be incorporated. And it's creating feedback from synthetic panel of users on the creative that we've inputted into the system. And so it's again going to give us things like the first impression or maybe some likely objectives and some suggested improvements. And the nice thing again is that this is all feedback early in the process, early in the creative process. We're getting feedback from personas that's very actionable and specific that hopefully helps us generate better and stronger creative earlier in the process. Legal review here is the next step. This is just a legal pre-screen. So once we run this, it's going to show us a summary of what it's found. It's going to talk about flag language and recommended edits here based on our legal requirements and guidelines that we have in place. So it's not legal guidance. It's not a replacement for legal approval, but it's providing early feedback in the process on things that we should be looking out for long before we ever submit this to the legal team for final approval. Data quality, again, this is one I get super excited about, but checking against our schema, doing UTM validation, identifying any blockers to launch here, really automating this whole process that typically is done by somebody on the ad ops team or marketing ops team that might take half an hour or so, but might be done in a inconsistent way, or you might be some delays in terms of when they're available to work on this. This keeps things consistent. It gives us a overall data quality score. It looks at the campaign schema, the creative metadata, the segment, tracking and measurement, gives us a UTM preview, and then gives us specific recommendations here, any format violations, all the recommended fixes. So really, really helpful in just making sure that we're getting good, solid recommendations. We can clean up the data capture and data setup here early in the process and make sure we have high data quality throughout our marketing systems. Once we jump into trafficking, the trafficking package, again, this is something that someone on the ad ops team or marketing ops team might be spending a half an hour on for each campaign, but automating all this so that it follows our naming conventions, everything is consistent. It's giving us the pre-launch QA checklist. It's even giving us JSON that we could use when we do our trafficking. So saving a lot of time and just, again, building in that consistency for the team. Approvals, here's an example of where we can track all the sign-off that we have across the brand, legal, media ops, final marketing. It can vary maybe by campaign, but based on what approvals are needed. But we're tracking that status all in one place. So we have a clear record of those approvals. We have something that's auditable if we need that. And just makes it a lot easier in terms of tracking and understanding where we are and what the feedback might be. Then finally, learnings. Once the campaign has completed, the team can enter in some of the performance in terms of things like spend, impressions, clicks. And again, this is helping us build that repository of what we've done and how it's worked. And that way we can leverage AI to incorporate that into what we do next and make sure that we've got that growing institutional knowledge that AI is always helping us surface and take advantage of for each of our campaigns. So that's it. Thanks for listening in. As always, hopefully this is helpful as just an example. This is something that, again, I put together pretty quickly, but hopefully gives you like some better ideas of how this might actually work in practice. These are the types of things that today an engineering team or even a marketing engineering team or sometimes a marketing operations team can create depending on the company and the company's readiness to build with AI, can create very, very quickly. So a first version of this could be created in less than a month in a way that is secure and maintainable and can be monitored. And the benefit of that, again, is that once you have this type of AI native workflow and system in place, you can start to apply AI in more and more points in the process where there's high leverage to do that. And so it just gives you a foundation to continuously improve and make sure that the process is more and more automated, that it's helping improve the quality, and ultimately what we really care about is helping us improve the outcomes, the how our campaigns, how our marketing actually performs each year. Uh, if you have any questions, have any feedback, if you're working on stuff that's similar to this, I would love to hear from you. Love to compare notes. And again, thanks for listening.